cooperate with the investigation. President Biden, by the way, is visiting the Carolinas today and announced he has directed the Pentagon to deploy up to 1,000 active duty soldiers to reinforce the North Carolina National Guard. And closing arguments today expected in Memphis in the federal trial of 3 police officers accused with beating Tyree Nichols to death last year. Attorneys for the 3 officers rested on Monday, and a judge spent yesterday poring over the jury instructions. Attorneys also didn't call the 3 former officers to testify before resting their case. ABC News legal contributor Brian Buckmeyer says that's not a fair practice.
The judge will instruct the jury, as they do with all criminal juries, that you cannot hold the fact that someone does not testify against them. That's their Fifth Amendment right. We all have that. However, as a defense attorney, to promise information to the jury and then never give it up, that's a cardinal sin in my mind.
Money news, here's Jim Ryan.
Investors have gained back some of yesterday's losses. The Dow Jones this morning was up 87 points, while the S&P had added 0.2% on the day. The Nasdaq was higher by 0.3. Pharmacy and healthcare giant CVS now says it will lay off nearly 3,000 employees. The cuts, part of a previously announced plan, will primarily target corporate jobs and not workers in stores or CVS pharmacies. Toyota plans to invest an additional $500 million to support development and production of an electric air taxi. The Japanese automaker has been working with a company called Joby Aviation to come up with that vehicle. Apple is reportedly getting a new lower-cost version of its signature smartphone ready for the market. Bloomberg says production is about to get underway on a new iteration of the iPhone SE, should be released sometime early next year.
All right, here at the midday, the Dow is down 39, S&P down 6, NASDAQ is flat. That's the latest news. Weather is next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Hello, kids. It's the Matt Murphy Radio Show underway for another day, and conveniently enough, my name is Matt Murphy. Hi there. Hope you're well. Hope your morning went good. It's afternoon now, 7 minutes past the afternoon hour, high noon as we call it, and we've got lots to get into on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Seen any good television lately? Oh, I'm feeling great. I'm feeling fabulous. I will probably be sick by the end of the show because Chris Hand is sick, and we don't know if I gave it to Han because I was kind of under the weather last week, or if Chris is giving it to me. One way or the other, we're passing it around in the studio at Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Pleased that you've decided to join us. If you want to know how good of a night the Republican Party, and by extension, the United States of America had, how good of a night it was, then I look on the old hashtag Never CNN. I call it hashtag Never CNN because I don't think you should ever watch CNN. I'll watch CNN so you don't have to. I'll suffer through this. I get paid to. You don't. So allow me to do it, and I'll report back. I'll let you know what's going on over there. And what's going on over there is a lot of not talking about the debate last night. I'll tell you that. We're talking about Iran. We're talking about the G7 allies in Iran and Israel. We're talking about the aftermath of Hurricane Helene, something they didn't really talk about that much over the weekend. They're talking about the port workers strike, 45,000 on strike from Maine to Texas, all across the eastern seaboard and the Gulf of Mexico. We're talking about everything but the disastrous debate on the part of Tim Walz and the master class presented by J.D. Vance last evening. We all watched together. If you weren't there, we had a great time. We missed you. We wish you were there. I was the guy in the hat. Not really. I was not wearing a hat last night, but we had a good time at Hop Springs. I want to thank a couple of people off the jump, and then we'll get into the meat and potatoes of the show. So thank you to Hop Springs and Murfreesboro. You guys show out. We absolutely love you. And many people drive from parts unknown, and I appreciate all of you. I hope I said hello to every single one of you, and I hope that we were able to shake hands or at least communicate in some form or fashion for those of you who wanted to. And if I missed you, I apologize. We'll catch you at the next one at the election night watch party. So thank you to those guys. Thank you so much to Glock Store for sponsoring the event. Glock Store is going to be by at about 12:30 this afternoon. I think Lenny McGill himself, he's stopping in to announce the winner of the Glock 43X MOS. That's I asked Dan at the Glock Store last night. I said, Dan, I would like to believe that I'm a learned person when it comes to firearms, and I own a Glock 43X, but I don't know what the MOS stands for. It's an optics system that goes on top of the Glock, which is pretty darn cool. Anyway, we'll announce the winner later on today at about 12:35 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I want to thank my good friends Holly and David from Savory Spice. They not only showed up, but they showed out. They brought a lot of Savory Spice items, not just for the crew, but also for you. And I was giving them out with wild abandon last evening from the main stage. So thank you to Holly and David with Savory Spice. Who else do I need to thank? Thank you to Busy Bee Plumbing. I think they were a part of the event, so I need to thank those guys. Thank you to, Fox Nation showed up. Pete Hegseth was there. Morgan Ortegas was there. I never can remember the other girl's name. Is it Tommy Laren? Am I saying that? You don't know. I think that's right. She was there. Clay Travis was there with Fox Nation. Always good to say hello to him. So those guys were very nice. We had a nice back and forth for a couple of minutes after the debate. Hegseth going down the line there. And by the way, I confirmed with Pete last evening because there was a little bit of a debate as to where he lived. He is in Goodlettsville, not Gallatin, as some of you have suggested, but he is in Sumner County. So that's nice. So anyway, we will give you full breakdown and analysis of the debate, my take on it. As I mentioned to Chris Hand during the cross, on these reaction days, I try to stay away from my brethren. And, I love listening to Dan Mandis in Nashville's Morning News. I love listening to Hand. I love listening to Brian Wilson. Well, I'll get to hear Brian Wilson's analysis after mine, but I stayed away from the first two guys this morning because I want my take to be fresh and unsullied by theirs. So if I say anything that those guys have said, I've not heard them say it. At the same time, I'm very curious to get your take on it at 615-737-9986, 615-737-9986 via telephone lines or the membersnutrition.com super text line is wide open. Winners, losers, best moments, worst moments, things that made you go, what? The best, Tim. And for those of you on the super text line, it has been suggested by loyal listener Richard that you send me in screenshots of Tim Walz mugging for the camera, and I'll give you my best impersonation of Tim Walz mugging for the camera. Like, here's one that I've seen several times on social media. This is a good one. See, he had his I'm so shocked face, and it was like that. If you're watching on Super Talk TV, that was very funny. If you're not, you're like, what is he doing? So, by the way, speaking of Super Talk TV, you're invited to be a part of Super Talk Television. Just go on over to YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, or Twitch and sign up, like, and subscribe. Would you do us that favor? Just give us the old thumbs up. We're on Super Talk TV every single day. Thank you, courtesy to US Pest, our good friends JK and Erica Brister. We're also on any streaming platform of your choosing. You can take us wherever you go. All you need to do is download us on your smartphone or your laptop. You go to your app of your choosing, and you type in Supertalk 99.7 WT in any place that you get information or music or podcast. We're there. Just type us in and carry us with you. Or better yet, go ahead and download our own app. We've got one. Supertalk 99.7 WT in your app store. Take us wherever you go and listen all day long and twice on Sundays. We'd appreciate that. Ken Weaver's back in the newsroom. He's gathering headlines as we speak, and he's not for a loss of headlines because there's a lot going on in the news today.
A whole bunch.
Ken Weaver, I loved seeing you last night, brother. I loved seeing you without the cloud or shadow over your head of having to get up at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, I wasn't even worried about sleeping.
I know. I looked at Weaver. I said,
I forgot to buy a cigar.
oh, well.
I needed a cigar out there in that wide open space.
Oh, that would have been nice, wouldn't it?
Well, it would have been nice, too, because remember, I did a story yesterday about how black bears are showing up in Middle Tennessee.
Uh-huh.
And if I have to, I will poke a bear's eye out with a lit cigar.
Will you now?
Yes.
Well, you go for the eyeballs. That's what I'm told. Have you seen the online video, Weaver, of the guy, I think he was in, like, British Columbia, doing exactly what you're supposed to? He comes out to his car, he's unloading his car, and a bear's got in his garage. And he doesn't know it, but he's kind of between the bear and the cub. Mm-hmm. And so the bear's kind of being aggressive. But he does exactly the right thing. He gets loud, he stands proud, and he slowly backs away. You don't run away.
Yeah.
Because they'll come after you.
Right.
But he's just clapping his hands. Hey, hey. It's a great video.
Well, yeah, I mean, they say you're supposed to make yourself look larger, but that is challenging for someone like me who keeps shrinking every year. Like every year I go get a physical, I'm a half-inch shorter.
For those of you that met Ken Weaver last night.
I was 5'8".
Yeah, when I first met him, he was 6'2" tall. And I don't know what's happened, but there you go.
All those years of smoking cigarettes finally caught up to me, man.
So, Sammy, last night, I, at some point during a break in the debate, I walk over to Weaver, and I was like, Ken, and he had an adult beverage. And there was only like an inch left in the cup. I said, you need another one of those. He said, this is only number 9. Now, I think he might have been exaggerating a little bit.
Was joking. It was 7.
I was like, well, that's the great thing because you don't have to worry about getting up tomorrow morning. How about that?
No, sir. I was fine.
Any reaction to the big crowd last night, Ken? I won't ask you about the debate. You're a newsman. You got to report on it. But what about that crowd, huh?
It's great, man. I freaking love going out to our events in Murfreesboro where I live. I love all of our listeners, but it's especially easy for me to get out there and do it in Murfreesboro, and it's really great to meet new people and then, get reacquainted with, people I've already met.
And then you don't have to skip out.
No.
I mean, Dan, to his credit, Dan stayed longer than I thought he would.
Yeah.
Because he was exhausted. Peepaw's got to go to bed early.
Yes, sir.
Peepaw's eating at 4:30 and getting in bed by 5.
Yeah. Yeah. So is that what he's going to be called now that he's a granddaddy? He's going to be Peepaw?
Okay, so everybody's saying it should be Dan Paw.
Yeah, I like Dan Paw.
Dan Paw's all right, but you know what? I just think Peepaw hits to his core. I don't know. Peepaw works for me. Peepaw and Meemaw.
Peepaw and Meemaw.
We could call him, I always said, I don't have any children. I was never blessed with children. We were never blessed with kids, and that's all good. Some are, some aren't. But I always said if I had grandchildren, I wanted to be called Big Daddy.
Big Daddy.
You know?
Yeah, like
Cat on a hot tin roof. Big Daddy. Maybe we should call Dan Big Daddy.
Avarice and greed. Avarice and greed.
What's the word? Damn it, Ken. No, that's avarice and greed is a good one, but he said, you know what that is, Brick?
I can't remember.
I can't remember. Mendacity.
Mendacity. Yes, sir.
That's what that is.
You don't mess with Big Daddy.
Sammy's sitting here going, what are they talking about?
What are these two old dudes
you see,
talking about?
There was a time when they would present entertainment options on a stage where live people would act out what we would now call a film right there in person. We called those plays. And Tennessee Williams wrote one, Sammy, called Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. And it starred, the feature film of that play production starred Paul Newman and a smoking hot Elizabeth Taylor.
Yeah.
And Burl Ives as Big Daddy.
Burl Ives was
What a great role.
Daddy boy. Yeah. I love the scene down in the basement.
That's when he was talking about mendacity.
Yes. Having him a cigar.
Uh-huh. Just staying away from everybody thinking he's got cancer.
Make sure his bathrobe didn't come open.
Sammy Kincaid is running the show. Belle Kay's around here somewhere, but she's making sure that everything comes out of our speakers as good as possible. Hey, Sammy.
Hey, how you doing? I was a little confused because I came off of a phone call talking about a No-Shirt Friday he wants to talk to you about. And then I came over to mendacity, and I was like, what is going on right now?
We're living in an alternate universe. This is the universe where Republicans win debates. This is the universe where Republicans feel really good about the election 30 days out. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's the world we're living in right now.
Yeah.
How's your noggin?
It's doing a lot better. I'm feeling a lot better today, a lot better than yesterday, to say the least. We're not sick anymore, so that's a good sign.
So I was so caught up, swept up, and overwhelmed with the news of the day yesterday that you told me this story halfway into our show, and I never got around to relating it to the audience. Is it okay to tell the story? You want to tell the story? Tell everybody what happened to you. What was it, yesterday morning?
It was actually Sunday night.
Okay.
So Sunday night, there's a lot of construction, contracted work going on at my house because I'm at the 1-year warranty of my new build. And so there's some contracted work going on. All the furniture's pushed to the middle of the room and covered so they can work on the walls. So nothing's where it should be. I just need to make sure I preface that.
Okay. Nothing is where it should be.
Nothing is where it should be.
So everything that happens from this moment forward is not Sammy's fault. Is that right?
Exactly.
Okay,
That's
good.
where we're going with this.
Okay.
That's way to go, Sammy.
Yeah, there you go. Nothing is my fault.
So I went to go plug in my phone charger Sunday night, and a shelf that I normally wouldn't have to walk past, I had to walk past, and I quite actually knocked myself out cold. And
wait. You knocked yourself out. You knocked yourself out.
Yeah.
Like-
I blacked out for some time. And then my daughter was there, who's 2, and that's where I felt terrible. She's probably traumatized. She said, Mommy, get up. Mommy, get up. And that's when I came to.
Oh, no.
And yeah, no, it was
Your
not
little
good.
girl was,
She's
Mommy, are you
traumatized.
okay? Oh.
Yeah, so she's traumatized. Hopefully since she's 2, she won't remember. But yeah, Monday morning, I mean, even Sunday night, the lump started on my head immediately, and eyes were hurting. Monday was sick basically all day from it. And
Holy moly. How long were you out, do you think?
Goodness.
I don't know. I don't feel like it was too long because I mean she watched the whole thing and she was
there with you when it happened.
Yes.
And so she was giving you the old mommy get up, get up.
And that's whenever I was like, I'm okay. Get it together. Let her know mommy's okay.
No.
But yeah, no, it has made me feel a little off for the last couple days, to say the least.
You think you were concussed?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I sent a video of it to a friend that's an EMT, and he said, you definitely have a concussion. And then when I was throwing up, he said, yeah.
You were throwing up?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a sign, Sammy.
Did you
Yeah.
go to the doctor?
I did not. Because all they're going to do is tell you to rest.
Okay. All right. I mean, I guess.
So tough it out. Rub some dirt on it. We're talking about Pete Rose yesterday. Rub some dirt on it.
Yes, sir.
Or
That's how you do it.
I mean, I'm not here to. I'm not worst case scenario guy, or they might tell you you got a brain bleed. I don't know.
I think that is worst case. Hopefully, fingers crossed, I don't have a brain bleed.
Well, I mean, I hope so,
Especially
too.
since I'm feeling a whole lot better
Absolutely,
today.
let's hope that, man.
Please
So
don't
you-
speak that into existence.
You look great. I don't think you've rubbed any dirt on it at all.
There's some makeup on it.
You rubbed some makeup on it.
Yeah,
Well, I'm glad you're okay.
I appreciate that.
The most precious part of that story is your little girl.
Yeah, no,
Aw.
she hasn't mentioned it last night or today, so hopefully that means with it being
If
with
she
her being
ever-
2,
if
hopefully
she
it means it's out of her mind.
Ever mentions it again, just say, well, Mama likes day drinking. Just tell her that.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. I'm all about some mimosas.
That'll fix it.
That'll fix it.
Oh, Mama's all right.
If
She
Mama's
just
on the
takes
floor, just poke her and wake her up, honey. It'll be fine.
It'll be fine.
Oh, no. Well, I'm glad you're okay. I hope
Thank
you're okay.
you.
I mean, I think you're okay.
Yeah, no, I'm
Is
doing
you-
a whole lot better now.
Oh, my goodness. That's awful.
I appreciate it, though.
I'm getting I'm getting a strong answer, a lot of strong answers to what we should call Grandpa Dan.
Okay.
And I think I've settled on one, and he's not going to like it. He's not going to like it at all.
What is it, man?
So we were talking about Big Daddy.
Big Daddy. Big Daddy.
Big Dandy. Big Dandy. Like,
He's not going.
I don't think he's going to like that one. But it's his name.
It is.
It's like Big Daddy,
That could actually work.
but it's Dan.
Big Dandy.
Big Dandy. Philip says Shankpaw. That's pretty good, too. Grandan. That's good.
I like Granddad.
Grandan's pretty good.
Shank Paul is pretty good.
Shankpaw. He does talk about shanking it.
He does. All the time. He's scared to death he's going to shank something.
He's always doing the shanking. Okay. Yes, Big Daddy's what my great-grandfather was called. I'm kind of P-Pop, G-Pop, P-Paw. I'm all about all of these, but unless Dan Mandis tells me otherwise, I'm going to go with Big Dandy. See what happened. All right, we've got lots to get into today. Obviously, we're not going to talk about Dan's nicknames all day. We'll discuss the debate. I'll give you my initial reaction. We'll talk about the aftermath of Hurricane Helene, something that I got away from yesterday. But there's still people in a lot of trouble in North Carolina, East Tennessee, and northern Georgia. We'll discuss that. We'll talk about the aftermath of the Israel-Iran strikes from yesterday. All of that coming up. Plus, Joe Biden decides he's going to just side with the port workers and not negotiate on behalf of the American people and be held hostage by 45,000 striking port workers. We'll discuss all of those things at 24 After on Super Talk.
Governor Lee just updated the response to Hurricane Helene. Damaged 9 easternmost counties and what he has in store for survivors still in need of things like water. Coming up at 12:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you much, Ken Weaver. Got a very special guest coming up in about 5 or so minutes on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. We mentioned the big debate watch party that we had last night at Hop Springs, brought to you by the Glock Store. The men from the Glock Store are in studio. We're announcing the big winner coming up in about 5 minutes or so. So if you were there last night and you registered, you might want to be near your telephone because you might be getting a telephone call or a text here pretty soon for the grand prize. We'll also announce the winners of second and third place. But these second and third place prizes are as good as grand prizes, man, especially that tactical mug that they gave us. Anyway, I'll talk about that in a minute. All right, so real quick, for about a minute, let me give you my initial assessment. At first, I will admit that I was a little, not frustrated, but I was a little confused as to why J.D. Vance wasn't going after Tim Walz harder in a fashion that I would have, or in a fashion that, Chris Hand would have, or Dan Mann, or whatever. And about halfway through the debate, I realized what he was doing. And I realized that it is very easy to expect that J.D. Vance is going to play to me or play to you who are already in Camp Trump Vance. J.D. Vance wasn't talking to us. J.D. Vance was talking to those people who are on the fence. J.D. Vance was talking to the folks who perhaps are just joining in, just tuning in, just figuring it out. J.D. Vance was talking to the people that have been told by the mainstream media over the last 6 months that Donald Trump's the devil and J.D. Vance is weird. And J.D. Vance did a master class at getting information to the public, doing it in a calm and humanizing way, and by contrast, making Tim Walz look like an absolute fool. Bottom line is this. After 90 minutes of debating, there was only one guy on the stage that had not admitted that he was a liar. And that guy was J.D. Vance. Tim Walz found himself having to admit that he was a liar. And not just a liar like, he can say misspoke all he want. He has repeatedly lied about major aspects of his life over the course of his life, and that does, in fact, go to character. And how do you not know that you're going to be asked that question? I suppose you think the media is going to protect you. I suppose. So we'll dive into all of that. We'll get your thoughts on it in just a moment, and we'll find out our big grand prize winner. Glock Store is here, and we will talk to the men of the Glock Store coming up in just a moment on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Time for the news.
I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. We've got the full forecast coming up in 5 minutes. Right now in Tennessee,
there is a tremendous amount of work to do. The damage, the loss of life, there are people still missing. There's a great deal of effort to reunify those who are unaccounted for. There has been significant loss of life already, and we don't know where that's headed.
That's Governor Lee talking about the response to the survivors who are lacking basic needs like water in those 9 easternmost counties hit hardest by Hurricane Helene. Lee said almost 400 National Guardsmen are airlifting supplies with Blackhawks to those who have been cut off. President Biden headed to storm-ravaged North Carolina, where it says deploying 1,000 active duty soldiers to reinforce North Carolina's National Guard. Before he left, Biden said he doesn't want Israel, in retaliation for yesterday's attacks by Iran, to take out Iran's nuclear interests, and he's working with the G7 nations on a statement about it.
The answer is no. I think there's things. We'll be discussing with the Israelis what they're going to do, but all 7 of us agree that they have a right to respond.
Governor Jeff Landry has thrown his support behind the revival of Louisiana State University's live tiger mascot at home football games. Here's Dave Packer.
Calling it an unbelievable opportunity, Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry confirming his backing for LSU to bring back its iconic Bengal tiger mascot, a tradition that's been dormant for nearly a decade. The proposal facing fierce opposition from People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. PETA urging the governor to reconsider, arguing that bringing a wild animal into a chaotic stadium environment is both cruel and dangerous. Landry responding, saying everyone anxious about this needs to, quote, calm down.
That's the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Hey, friends, it's Matt Murphy, and I want to spend a moment talking about our good friends at U.S. Pest, J.K. and Erica Brister. Fine folks, great Americans. They love their country. But most importantly, for our purposes here today, they can't stand pests. They don't like bugs. I don't like creepy. I mean, I'm anti-spider. I'm big-time anti-spider, and I don't have to worry about spiders being on my property eating the other bugs because I know you people are like, oh, spiders eat other bugs. No. U.S. Pest takes care of all of my bugs. They have full-service pest control, termite protection, crawl-space service available for you. Go over to uspest.com to find out more. The purpose, basically, of pest control, I mean, I know that they're gross, and nobody wants to see a roach. Nobody wants to see a spider. Nobody wants to see ants or ladybugs even, or even mice, rodents. But the ultimate purpose is to protect your family and to protect your property because these rodents can get in there and destroy things. Plus, there are insect and rodent-borne diseases that you want to keep off your property as well. Plus, you need to protect those pets. So, uspest.com, that's uspest.com, or give them a call at 590-1260. That's 590-1260. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. 20 minutes until 1 o'clock. Matt Murphy and you until 3. Thank you for being with us. Episode 664. We got about 34 days left into the election. I got a lot of, and thank you, all of you that were being so nice about my my hippie hair. I got Locks for Trump going. I'm on day 214 on the Locks for Trump. I announced on March 1st that I wasn't going to cut my hair until we had a new president-elect. And that was at a time where there was a possibility of Joe Biden being in office until 2028. So now we know that we'll have a new president-elect one way or the other. We hope it's the good way. So I'm growing out my hair, but a lot of people are like, oh, you should grow this thing. So thank you so much. Thank you, all of you, for coming out to the big event. It was absolutely fabulous. Hop Springs, what a wonderful host, and what a wonderful presenting sponsor. The Glock Store, let me tell you, I'm not saying this because the man Lenny McGill is sitting here. I'm not saying this because he's sitting here. But let me tell you, the Glock Store is tip-top in my world. It is the best gun store going, and not just in Nashville, but I've never been to a better store. Lenny, thank you for being our presenting sponsor, and thank you for being in today, man.
Well, thank you very much. What a great pleasure it is to be here. And, your hair looks good. I do like it.
Thank you, Lenny. I appreciate that.
Yeah, our store is different. We certainly, the facility is top notch. We've really done a good job, presenting. But we've got every Glock in stock, every Glock piece and part, every Glock magazine, lots of accessories, and then we've got our amazing Shoot 270 shoot rooms.
Oh, no question. I mean, you just do it different. Yeah. And we've been talking about the VIP room lately.
Yep.
And I never thought about it until your man Dan said, hey, we're a great place to have an anniversary, to have a birthday. If you're a gun enthusiast and you want to get a group together with a trained instructor that can get you into one of those rooms, great place to do it.
Well, Nashville, because it's such a destination city, we get people from all around the world. Yesterday, we had a group of 10 people from London who had never shot guns before.
I bet.
Yeah, and they were just fascinated, of course. And we took them in and took them from A to B, and they had a lot of fun. And it was a group of people who literally, said, hey, I just want to experience this whole thing.
That's pretty cool. When you get someone in that environment that comes from a place that they don't value your ability to protect, they don't value the Second Amendment like we have in this country, I bet they're just standing there in the retail shop drooling, right? It's just like, oh, my Lord, look at all this.
And that is really what it is all about, the Second Amendment. People, kind of think that it's not important. It is important because it's the one that really, holds up all the other amendments, and it's what we have to remember. It's not about hunting. It's really about self-defense and home defense and tyranny, keeping the government in check. And we've seen a lot of crazy stuff happen with the government lately. And,
no question.
The conspiracy theories are often proven right.
Well, and I like to say, with no disrespect intended, I always preface it, I am not disrespecting our men and women in uniform, police officers, firefighters, EMTs, and all the rest. But we are the first responders. Truly, if something goes down in your world, if something happens to you, either an accident or, God forbid, somebody intrudes into your home or wants to rob you or whatnot, you're the first responder, and you have to decide, what that's going to look like. And with your Second Amendment rights in place and with a Glock store in town, you can make that an affirmative defense, and absolutely.
Well, come down and train with us. That's the main thing.
That's exactly right.
And it is a perishable skill, something you do need to learn how to do and maintain a skill.
Mm-hmm.
So, we have people come in, once a month or once every other week and just maintain their shooting skills. It's important. It's a tool that you need to learn how to use because, like you said, you're the first responder. It's your house. It's your domain. You never know what's going to happen. You need to be prepared. Now, yesterday we had a big event down there. You guys had 500 people or so. It was huge.
Yeah. You guys had 300 entries, something like that,
yeah,
for the big grand prize?
We gave away several items we're going to talk about here really shortly. But yeah, we had 300 people actually enter. And what's really interesting, I was talking to Dan earlier about it. I said, the odds of winning this Glock are really good.
I know,
it's
right?
1 out of 300.
I have a question.
And so we have a winner here we're going to announce very shortly.
All right, Bill has a question. Yeah, and
we had 500 people.
Yeah.
And 200 of them didn't want free stuff?
All right, so we were talking about that. So a lot of them were couples. It was a husband and a wife, and so I think there was one entry per family. Dan's telling me no. So I think it was a husband and wife deal.
How do you not want free stuff?
I know. I would agree with you. Absolutely. So we had 3 different prizes.
We do.
And let's talk about third prize. Okay. Third prize first, which is better than third place, but because I have one now, and I love this thing.
It's the tactical rehydration mug, which is kind of cool. It's really a novelty gift idea. It's a mug that literally has Picatinny rails on it, and it has a handle, which is an AR-15 handle. So it's really cool. It's like for the guy who has everything, it's a great gift.
And it's I had several guys, because you guys were generous enough to give us on the crew our own.
Yes.
And I had guys coming up to me going, "Man, is that aluminum?" And I'm like, "Dude, that is not. That, just pick that up. That is heavy metal grade. That is a fine mug that can be used as a defense mechanism if absolutely necessary."
It's very cool. And we have a winner for that.
Right.
Her name is Pamela M.
Woo!
Pamela M.
Congratulations, Pamela.
She was there at the event last night. She scanned the code, got herself in there, and she's a winner. These mugs are available on our website as well. So you can just tack to go.
And I think Dan was just telling me that there's a $10 discount right now going on.
Yeah.
So just going on over to the Glock store.
And it's like I said, it's one of those great, kind of, goofy gifts that, someone is going to look at and say, well, that's cool. Thanks. I never knew I needed it.
Look, I got a lot of mugs. And I didn't think I would love this. Y'all just go look at it on the website.
Yeah, it's very cool.
It is cool. Yeah.
All right. So the second place prize is a 3-session range card. That means you get 3 sessions in our combat shoot rooms. Now, again, we don't shoot down lanes, and that includes an instructor. So the cool thing about that is that you come in, and no matter what skill level you're at, we're going to figure out where you're at. We're going to take you to the next level. And we can, kind of assess where you're at and what you want to do. If you're interested in concealed carry, you're interested in home defense, interested in just, competition shooting, or just learn how to, operate a gun, we can take you from A to B, and it's, in a private environment. That's what the rooms are all about. You don't shoot next to people that you don't know. You're shooting in a private room with an instructor, and we can move the targets around. We can move you around. We can turn the lights out. We can do all kinds of fun things that you can't do in other ranges.
Well, and can I tell you, one of the best parts about the room, I mean, obviously, you're replicating a real-world environment, but the communication between your instructor and yourself. Because I had a relationship with a range in Birmingham, right? And you get an instructor on range. Well, there's 8 other people on the range. You got to wear the ear protection. You can't communicate.
Right. You can't hear what's
It's almost impossible to communicate. In this setting, you can take off the ear protection. You can talk. You can talk through what you're doing, where you're at, and then get the ear protection back on and fire down range. It's great.
That's what we found is the private room concept is really, really popular. Once you do it, it's almost like you can't go back. You can't want to go to the lane again because it's too distracting.
All right, so 3 range sessions, 3 room sessions.
Our winner now is another female. And
all right,
it's Crystal G. Crystal G. So she's going to get 3 sessions in our indoor shoot 270 ranges, and we invite everybody to learn how to shoot. I think it's a really important skill to learn how to operate a gun, be safe around a gun. That's really important. If you see a gun, you need to know how it operates, and we can help you with that.
Lenny and I have talked about it in the past. And God love you. I want every single one of you to be Second Amendment supporters and gun owners. But if you're a gun owner and you don't keep up your training, I would suggest humbly you're not doing it right. So that's a great tip. All right, are we ready for the big grand prize? All right, no, hold on. Bell's got something. Let's go. The grand prize. Tell everybody what it is, Lenny.
Okay, it's a Glock 43X MOS, which is one of the most popular handguns in America right now. It's a tremendous gun for self-defense and home defense because it's small enough to put into your nightstand or a little safe. It's also a great concealed carry gun. We sell a ton of Glock 43X MOSs. Glock 43X MOS, like I said, is the most popular gun in America today.
No, I love calling. I mean, and I don't know if this is a preferred term. Y'all shake your heads or nod your heads or whatever, but I call it my great getaway gun.
Yeah.
You know what? It's great for concealed carry, and it'll get you where you need to be away from danger.
Well, it'll get
it'll
get you back to your rifle.
Exactly right. All right, so do the big thing again, Bell, because we're going to announce the big winner of the Glock 43X.
Now.
Ready? You got it? Hold on. Bell's coming up, and Lenny, who's the big winner?
Tyler H.
Tyler
is our winner.
H! Woo!
Now, we had intended to call Tyler.
So Bell's going to tell the story because Lenny and I were talking along with Dan, and Lenny said, I want to call Tyler and get him on the air and congratulate him personally. And you got him on the line there, Bell?
Yeah, I caught him on the tail end of his lunch break, and he had to clock back into work, and he couldn't.
I actually love this. So Tyler had to clock back in. Tyler said, I'm right at the end of my lunch break. I love it. Thank you, guys. He was very, very thankful.
He was really excited
of being the big winner, but he said, I got to go back to work.
Well, that's a good work ethic. How about that?
He said, I can't talk on the phone. I got to go back to work. But Tyler, I know that Lenny and Dan will get in contact.
Congratulations,
with you
Tyler H. And
Way to go, buddy.
And really, congratulations to everybody coming out there to support, this cause. We really have to think about this election is not Democrat, Republican. It's really good versus evil. It's free speech versus censored speech. We need to really remember what's going on here. This whole Democratic group is not American.
Let me tell you, some of the conversation going on at the end when they tried the moderators and Walls again tried to go back to 2020 and talk about the past, and they love talking about Jan 6 because they think that the people that don't pay as much attention that they can confuse them about Trump's involvement and all of that. And I love the fact that Vance said, no, hold on. Let's talk about the real threat to democracy. And I believe that he is 100% on. The willingness on the part of the Democrats to just cut out major portions of our Constitution and our Bill of Rights to include our freedom of speech. And let me tell you something. If they had the ability to eliminate 2A, Lenny, they'd do it.
Oh, absolutely. And even 1A. You see Tim Walz was pushing back on that whole censorship thing. Oh, no, well, you can't say fire in a theater. Well, that's ridiculous. Of course, but you are going to get arrested if you say something bad about your government.
Well, that's right. And if you tell me that the government's going to determine what is or is not permissible to say, what is or is not misinformation, when I start talking bad about the government, guess what they're going to call that? Misinformation.
Right. And even, this whole thing with the Haitians in Springfield. I mean, we hear a lot of different things, but the people on the ground are saying, yeah, they are eating cats.
That's right.
So
the media won't report it because it looks bad for the Democrats.
And if you say that, if you were in England, they would arrest you.
And we see the videos.
Right.
We see where you don't have that guarantee of rights that God gave us, that we guaranteed through the Constitution. They come into homes and they say, you said the wrong thing on social media. You're out. You're arrested. What? It's insane.
So they're going to go after your thoughts as much as your speech. You just can't think that.
Lenny, I love having your spirit in town. I mean, you've been on the side of the country that maybe is a little squishy on some of these issues. You've seen what happens when a state kind of allows itself to slide into these types of policies, and we love having you in Nashville.
We love being in Nashville. We love the people. We love the environment, and certainly, it's been a great move for the business.
Well, Lenny, thank you for everything the Glock Store does, and thank you to all of you that came out, that registered, and were a part of our event last night. And we couldn't have done it without you guys.
WTN rocks, man. Thank you.
Y'all are awesome.
All right.
Y'all are awesome. Dan, thank you. Yeah, wait, Dan might have something. No,
just remember we're doing it again.
Oh, that's right. Election night.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to be a part. Yeah, election night down at Wilson County Fairgrounds. And we've had about 500 people last night. We can double that in the room that we're going to be in.
Maybe we'll do 2 guns.
Woohoo! You heard it from the man.
Hey, Bell, just isolate that. Remind Lenny of that when the time comes. We'll just send him that.
Make sure you come out and get yourself entered. That's all it comes.
Oh, love it, man. Thank you, Lenny.
All right,
we appreciate you.
Thank you all.
Quick timeout. We'll be back in a moment on Super Talk.
All right, just a reminder, westbound South Loop downtown, you're going to run into a backup due to some road work. The off-ramp right lane is blocked to go southbound on 65, and it will be for about the next 14 days for that work. We have the latest on Tennessee's Hurricane Helene response, and Iran's president still talking tough, coming up at 1 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
That is in mere seconds from now. Thank you so much, Ken Weaver. It's the Matt Murphy Show, Super Talk 99.7 WTN. You want to stay tuned for the next hour. We've got someone on the line that says that they are in the midst of what is going on in North Carolina, in the midst of the hardest hit areas. His name is Steve, and he has called us with a plea to you and to me. And I don't know what Steve needs to talk about, but we're going to talk to him in just a moment. He's on the line right now, and he says he's 2 miles from the hardest hit area in North Carolina. We will discuss that with him next on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. 2 more hours to go. Here comes the news.
One o'clock on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Full forecast coming up in 5 minutes. Right now in the easternmost counties impacted by Hurricane Helene, News Channel 5 says the death toll is up to 9. And TEMA Director Patrick Sheehan told today's briefing something important.
Continuing to survey damages. At the last check this morning, we had more than 600 structures, homes damaged in 4 counties. 120 of those are considered destroyed, 313 are considered as having major damage, and the rest are other categories. That number is greatly increased since yesterday. We'll have a lot more numbers, I expect, here in the next couple of days.
Almost 400 National Guardsmen on the ground operating airlifts with Black Hawk helicopters to deliver necessary supplies like water to residents who have been cut off. President Biden goes to the Carolinas today to survey the damage there.
President Biden announced he has directed the Pentagon to deploy up to 1,000 active duty soldiers to reinforce the North Carolina National Guard. The president says in a statement these soldiers will speed up the delivery of life-saving supplies of food, water, and medicine to isolated communities in North Carolina, saying, quote, they have the manpower and logistical capabilities to get this vital job done and fast. The White House says the soldiers are based at Fort Liberty in North Carolina, and this deployment will start immediately. Service members available today.
Iran's president promises a far stronger response. His words, if it continues on the current course, that is, Israel continues on the current course of military operations in Lebanon. We get more from Tom Rivers at the Foreign Desk.
President Masoud Pezeshkian vows next time if Israel does something to disrupt his country's security, Iran will respond, and that response, he warns, will be far greater than what was demonstrated last night. On specifically Israel's Iron Dome aerial defense system, he mocks it, saying it's more fragile than glass.
Dock workers along the East Coast and the Gulf of Mexico remain on the picket line today, pressing their demands for job security, higher wages. Here's Jim Ryan.
The Port of New Orleans handled a record number of cargo containers coming and going in the quarter just ended. But instead of unloading South American coffee and Asian plywood today, longshoremen are on strike, demanding that automation not be added to the docks.
The truth is, robots do not pay taxes and they do not spend money in their communities.
Blaine Ehrlich heads the New Orleans chapter of the International Longshoremen's Association. Talks between the ILA and port operators continue, but with no sign of an agreement to end the walkout.
That is the latest news. Weather is next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
I don't know about you, but I felt it was downright crisp for me this morning as you got out and about. That means fall weather is here. I mean, it's October after all, and I've been telling you to call Efficient Heating and Cooling. Jeff Eddy's ready for you, and you need to get that heater ready for the winter season, the fall season even. It's time to get it maintenance through Efficient Heating and Cooling. Efficient Heating and Cooling is a small company with big service and big results in their hearts. They will send a certified tech out to your home, and for less than $125, they will completely maintenance your heating unit and take care of anything that might need to be taken care of to make sure that it's running as efficiently as possible, it's as clean as possible, and you don't have to worry about the health and safety of the people in your home. Plus, you don't have to worry about untimely breakdowns when the weather does turn cool. Jeff Eddy's Efficient Heating and Cooling of Tennessee has the best value around on tune-ups. I said $125 or less for any residence, no matter how many units you have, and oftentimes it's quite less than that $125. That's the max cap. Jeff Eddy keeps that overhead down. He keeps the invoices low. That saves you money. Plus, when it's time to replace, they're an efficient pro partner and elite pro partner with Rheem. Go to efficienthvac.net, efficienthvac.net, or give them a call at 615-784-4424, 784-4424 for Efficient. It is the Matt Murphy Radio Show, Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Hello, good afternoon. It's 1:07. Thank you for being around. Lots to get into. We've been discussing a little bit of the debate last night. We'll continue to kind of go over that. I'll play you a couple of audio clips over the next hour or so on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Get your reaction as well, 615-737-9986, 615-737-9986. Statman writes, how did your stint on Fox Nation go? I know you nailed it. It was short. It was shorter than I wanted it to be. Originally, I think I was going to be on the set that they had set up, and they moved me down to the bar, and, I was a part of a, kind of a line of walk and talk with Pete Hegseth, although I had a great conversation with Pete, and I said last night, and I'll say again today, that last night's debate wasn't between J.D. Vance and Tim Walz. Last night's debate was between reality and fantasy. And Tim Walz and Kamala Harris and their ilk live in a fantasy world where no borders is okay, where sinking money into the economy doesn't have an impact on the economy, and where you don't have to take care of your own when it comes to natural disasters like Hurricane Helene. Now, before we get further into the debate, we've got a caller on the line that tells Sammy that he is kind of at ground zero in terms of the hurricane in North Carolina. His name is Steve. He's been holding for a minute. And I'm so glad that he called us to relate to us what is happening on the ground. Steve, good afternoon. I hope you're doing okay.
Yeah, we're making it. It's a lot of hardship and a lot of frustration. Just before you came on the radio, they just passed with another convoy. I live in Fairview, North Carolina, which is about 7 or 8 miles southeast of Asheville. And if you look on a map, if you draw a triangle from Asheville to Black Mountain to Lake Lure and then back up to Asheville, that seems to be ground zero for where the very worst happened. I know a lot of our people up towards Spruce Pine and then East Tennessee got hit too. But as far as just sheer numbers of fatalities and just the logistical nightmares, we're right in the center of it. I guess we felt like we had been forgotten for about 3 or 4 days after it happened. There was no way to get any information in or out of North Carolina, of Western North Carolina, and the sense of isolation was just unreal for everybody. We didn't start seeing outside help until probably well into day 2, early into day 3, and most of that was just out-of-county people from North Carolina the next day I started seeing convoys from, I've seen New Jersey State Police, Illinois State Police, New York State Police, Virginia State Police, National Guard. The United States Army was landing Chinook helicopters inside of our house. They were landing we live just above the elementary school, and they were landing in the parking lot, carrying people out of the really severely affected areas, which is about probably another 2 or 3 miles above our house. We live in a community that goes kind of up a mountain from Asheville, and it levels out into a valley where Fairview is, and then you go up a steeper mountain and cross that and drop down into Bat Cave and Lake Lure. And that area just past our house goes up into almost like a box valley. And we had 3 or 4 major mudslides that started at the tops of the mountains and came down the hillsides. And all of those mudslides joined together and then went down the river into Fairview. And when those mudslides and the river came down, it happened literally instantly, and it took everything in its path, houses, cars, homes, I mean, anything that was in its path. The destruction is there's stuff that's not ever going to be there.
Yeah.
Again, they announced the body count's going up every day. We're at 60 in Buncombe County, which is the county where we live, and over 50 of those are from Fairview, and we've lost 10 close friends and family so far. The worst part of the whole thing is that the areas up in that valley, all of the roads were severed in multiple places by these avalanche mudslides. So there's whole chunks of road that are missing. So the only way you can get in, you have to go as far up as you can go on vehicle, and then your name has to be on a list at a checkpoint. And then if your name's on the list, if you have business up there, family up there, property up there, or if you're responding to help, if they let you in, then you have to go on foot or by ATV or horse to get to that area. The only other way in is by helicopter, which is what they've been doing too. They've been running 8 or 9 helicopters a day, and now they're probably running up to 20 a day, carrying stuff in, stuff out, people in, people out. The search and rescues during the day, they start very early in the morning. The convoys come up the mountain from Asheville. They pass our house. They go on up. They spend all day there until dusk, and then they all come back down the mountain. It's too dangerous to do anything at night. People are frustrated. We have no water. We have no power. We have no cell service, and no projected time when that'll happen. There's a helicopter going over right now. It's a Black Hawk going back out. I think it's just something that has never happened before and probably will never happen again in any of our lifetimes. And it caught everybody, including the government, completely off guard. We were looking at it. I'm a pilot. Actually, I fly hot air balloons, but still a pilot.
Right.
We were looking at why this happened, and all of our weather friends, basically what happened, a front came through from the west through Nashville, and, like they normally do, and it stalled out over the mountains, and we got 11 inches of rain, and that was in the 2 days before Helen hit. That was when Helen was still out in the Gulf. So then Helene came in, and it butted up against that front and stalled out over us and dumped another 30 inches of rain. So we get 40 inches of rain in about a 3-day period. And this area is just not built for that. It's I don't know how much you're familiar with up here in western North Carolina, but I mean, it's, on a good day, it's remote in areas. But it's just completely severed whole areas from other people and other, ways of doing things.
Where are you now, Steve?
I'm sitting in a parking lot on the side of the road. There's one cell tower in Buncombe County that's working. They're starting to put up mobile towers around town, but that's down in Asheville, like in the city. So I'm sitting on the side of the road at a spot where everybody else parks. There's probably 15 or 20 cars sitting here right now. This is where everybody comes to communicate. I hadn't been able to obviously listen to your show every day in the normal world, and I used to live in Nashville. I'm a retired police officer. I've called you before on other issues. I moved back up here a couple of years ago when my grandson was born, so I could be close to them. And so we've got my daughter, her husband, my grandson, my ex-wife, my in-laws. We all kind of live like in one little area, and luckily we were up on a hill. We had 7 trees down on our property and couldn't get off our property for a day and a half. We had to cut our way out. We were standing in the window watching the trees come down, and we were trying to see if it was going to hit the house or not. It was, we thought the storm was going to be the worst of it, but actually it's what came after that's been, the hardest. But I tell you what, I've had a lot of friends. I've had some friends that live in Cordele, Georgia. They're balloon people. And they drove all the way up the other day and met me in Hendersonville with a load of gasoline, water, chainsaws. I mean, they just had a whole big truck loaded down, and we offloaded it onto my trailer. I think it took me longer to get to them in Hendersonville than it took them to drive from Georgia to North Carolina. Just trying to, pick your way through. The normal routes are not normal anymore. You drive down one way, and then it's blocked. You got to turn around, and you got to try another way, and then you're asking people. And
is Fairview, just to help people that don't understand that part of the world, is Fairview's basically a suburb of Asheville? Is that a fair way to put it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and the thing is, I guess what you'd call the suburbs of Asheville, each one of them lie just outside the city, but we're all in different valleys, if that makes sense.
Right. No, I get it. I get it.
So Swannanoa and Black Mountain, they're in one valley, which is the same valley that I-40 runs through. If you were going through Asheville to, like, Raleigh, you would go through Asheville and then Swannanoa and then Black Mountain. Fairview, our valley goes southeast toward Lake Lure, and then you have, to the south, you have Skyland, Arden, Hendersonville, Fletcher, which is all directly south of Asheville, and then you have valleys to the west and the north, where Canton and Weaverville, respectively, are. So everything's divided. So even in a normal world, if you're going from Fairview to Swannanoa, you got to go into town, drive around the mountain, and then go back out the other way. There's no straight path any time. But
Steve,
when this happened,
go ahead.
When this happened, when you only have 2 or 3 routes that you can normally take in a normal world, and those routes are closed, then you're really, done for.
I'm trying to keep myself composed, Steve, because I'm embarrassed that the rest of the country is not more focused on what you guys are going through. I'm I'm embarrassed that we're talking about other stuff and we ought to be talking about you. I really am. And I know that's not why you called, but I think it's so easy for us over here in Nashville to just get so focused on what's going on in the world that we forget that our fellow Americans are suffering mightily right now, and they need help. Have you seen help from your state? Have you seen help? I mean, where's the help coming from? Have you seen FEMA?
I personally have not seen FEMA yet. I have heard they're here, and I have heard that they are at certain locations up toward Asheville. We have not gotten that yet. We were told for the last 3 days that they're coming to Fairview School. They're coming to Fairview School over and over, but now they do have, the state has set up a place there. They got a potable water tanker truck, and you can get potable water. You have to bring your own containers, and it's like there's a limit on it and so forth. I'll tell you how I handled this as a former cop. So what I did was I just went into priority mode. We just had to do triage. So the first thing I had to do, the first day, the entire day after the storm, my sole priority was to get my hands on gasoline. Right. Because you couldn't go anywhere without gasoline, and there was no power, and there was no way to pump gas out of the ground. And so my friends in Georgia brought gas up, and that got me kind of jump-started on gas. And then after that, I had to drive like quite a ways to find gas stations that were open. There were lines everywhere, and most of them were taking cash only. Of course, their credit cards were worthless when this happened. Just today is the first day I've actually used a card to pay for anything. It was cash only. Right. Well, if you don't have cash, and I never carry cash, there's no ATMs in service.
Right.
So we had to borrow cash from a family member that did keep cash. And so gas was the first day. The second day, the priority was water. We had to have water. So I went out, and I have another friend of mine who's another hot air balloon pilot, and he lives on the other side of town, and he has a well that was operational. So I went over there, and he had an 80-gallon tank, like a big square tank. And so I filled it up on my trailer and drug it back to Fairview, so we're using that, which is better off than most people have. I've got that sitting in front of the house. And then the next day, the priority was food. I had to drive almost 40 miles to get to a grocery store where I didn't have to wait in line for hours. And then 3 or 4 hours drive back. I bought food for 3 families and came back and, dropped them off. There's a lot of churches that have been...
Steve, can you hold on just a second? I hate to ask you to do this.
That's fine.
I mean,
I'm not going anywhere.
Well, God bless you. Steve is talking to us from Fairview, North Carolina. He is in the epicenter of the hardest hit areas just outside of Asheville, North Carolina. Let me tell you, he just said a mouthful there. You know what helps you survive a natural disaster? And if we don't know this already, we are learning this. And anyone that's been through a natural disaster, a hurricane, a tornado, or something along these lines, flooding, you know what's beneficial? A gas car. You know what's beneficial? A gas stove, a gas water heater, a gas chainsaw, and cash money. You know what's freaking useless? An electric car, debit card, a city bus, or the government. We'll check back in with Steve in just a second on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Tennessee hurricane response update. We've got the death toll, the new one, and President Biden speaking on Iran coming up at 1:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you, Ken Weaver. An incredibly riveting conversation with Steve, who has been gracious enough to hold on the line. He is live in Fairview, North Carolina, just outside of Asheville, North Carolina, truly the epicenter of the most disaster that occurred through Hurricane Helene. And we've been listening to Steve just describe on the ground what's going on. Steve, I think I made an assessment that is accurate based on what you've told me and based on my experience in these types of things. And that is, you know what's valuable and you know better than anybody because you're a first responder first and foremost, and you're living through it right now, gasoline and gasoline-powered equipment. And the ability to transact with cash money as opposed to depending on debit cards. Some of these things that you're telling us are so very valuable and important to remember should we see something like this, God forbid, again. But I want to know from you what we need to do for you. How can we help Fairview? How can we in Nashville, Tennessee, assist the people of North Carolina right now?
Well, it's hard. It's hard for me to know that from inside this mess. I know that our Fairview Volunteer Fire Department has set up a GoFundMe. I don't know exactly what it is, but I know they have one. There's a lot of communication on Facebook. I encourage everybody in Middle Tennessee that can hear me, if you just start Googling Fairview, Asheville, Swannanoa, North Carolina, rescue stuff, of course the Red Cross, the roads are we're still inaccessible except from the east and south now. 26 is open to South Carolina, and 40 is open going east to Raleigh. 26 going north into Tennessee, like Irwin, Kingsport, is going to be closed until March of next year, they're saying now. And 40 between us and Knoxville will probably be closed a year. So the only way to get to us physically would be to go around through South Carolina, to get from Tennessee to us. There are a couple of windy little routes that you can take, but you really have to know where you're going to try and do that through like the very western counties. But I just if people can just focus their attention and do some searching and research on our area and start finding things that they can give to, look up churches here because almost all the churches are taking donations. I can't even begin to give you a list of all the names, but if you just go online and you Google churches, Asheville area, you'll get a list and just start contacting them. We're hoping things get a little bit more organized. Before we run out of time, the pictures and the videos that people are posting, and I see them each day when I come up here to get signal, but to see it in person, it was just astounding. I mean, I was out in Swannanoa yesterday to go check on my sister-in-law, and whole homes were gone. People are just sitting out with all their belongings on the side of the road. People were getting people to come in with U-Haul trucks to load what little belongings they had left. Cars were over like matchboxes. Tractor-trailer rigs, upside down, twisted, broken. There was one road we went down, the road was blocked because the hood of a tractor-trailer was laying in the middle of it. Power lines are still down. It's just like we just got squashed. It's just like a giant. It's just. I've been through 8 hurricanes. I grew up in Florida, and I've been through hurricanes before. I went through the tornadoes in Nashville in '98. I went through them again when they came through Gallatin in 2002. This is not anywhere even. Those don't even touch this on the scale that this is. And I think about Katrina, and everybody talks about, well, Katrina's the worst. And it maybe end up being the worst in terms of deaths, people lost. But I think that this is going to be bigger than that when it comes to infrastructure. And I say that only because, the Gulf Coast is prepared for these kind of things They know these things can happen. It's kind of like California. You know, they know they have earthquakes, so stuff's built for that in mind. But Western North Carolina has always taken for granted that this type of thing can't happen here. So this area is not prepared for this kind of event. We're not laid out that way. We don't ever, it doesn't enter our minds that something like this could happen here. And everybody I talk to, my friends, my neighbors, people at the gas station, the grocery store, everybody's like, we just can't believe it. We're still just in shock. And I've been coming up here every day and posting updates for all of my Facebook people, you know, trying to give them an update on what the day is looking like. And, you know, I've had an outpouring of support from people that I am friends with and network with. But they just can't believe what I'm telling them. And what I'm telling you what I've described, it's 10 times worse than what you can't put it into words.
Well, you've done a great job, Steve. I mean, you've brought it home to me, and I think you brought it home to every single person listening to this radio show, how important it is for us to focus on what we need to do to help you guys.
So who won the debate last night? We hadn't heard.
Thank you for making me laugh, Steve. J.D. Vance won, by the way, Steve. Reality won. Hey, I'm going to put you on hold. I'm going to put you on hold for a second because before you go, I want Sammy, please get his Facebook and get his contact information if possible, because I want to keep in contact and keep updated with him. Thank you to Ken Weaver for waiting on the news, because I think we needed to finish that conversation. Let me tell you something. If there's a reality check on this radio show today, if there's a reality check for you, that should be it. That we need to reach out and help our neighbors in East Tennessee and help our neighbors in Western Kentucky because they are still suffering, and it brings tears to my eyes to think about folks that feel alone and feel like there are others that aren't thinking about them. We are thinking about you. We are praying for you. God bless you, Steve. Get his info for me, Sammy. It's time for the news on Superdog.
Got the full forecast coming up in 5 minutes, but right now in East Tennessee, Governor Lee says his entire cabinet met this morning. They are in complete agreement about the response to Hurricane Helene.
This is a survivor-centric effort that we are making.
TEMA setting up a one-stop shop relief station in each of the counties impacted to make it easier on survivors. Almost 400 National Guardsmen are on the ground, but they're operating airlifts with Black Hawk helicopters, too, to deliver necessary supplies like water to residents who are still cut off. In hard-hit North Carolina, President Biden announced he's directed the Pentagon to deploy up to 1,000 active-duty soldiers to reinforce the North Carolina National Guard. And before leaving this morning, he told reporters he's crafting a joint statement with the other G7 nations on how to respond to Iran's ballistic missile attack on Israel yesterday.
Obviously, Iran has gone way it's way off court. We're going to put together a joint statement. Hasn't been done yet. It'll be done before too long, probably by the time we land. And there's going to be some sanctions imposed on Iran.
Back here in Tennessee, closing arguments expected today in Memphis in the federal trial of 3 black police officers accused with beating Tyree Nichols to death last year. Attorneys for the 3 officers rested on Monday. A judge spent yesterday poring over the jury instructions. ABC News legal contributor Brian Buckmeyer outlines the arguments he believes the defense will highlight in their closing statement.
It's not just a question as to whether or not they harmed Tyree Nichols, but also the fact that they didn't provide medical care and also hid the information as to how he was harmed. And so I want to see how they try to address that, but I think the prosecution has a very strong case here.
That is the latest news. Weather is next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Hey, friends, it's Matt Murphy. The Tennessee Men's Clinic is here for you. Gentlemen, I want to talk specifically to you. Now, you ladies in the listening audience, if this sounds like your guy, I want you to give him the heads up. Maybe give him the old poke and tell him he needs to call the Tennessee Men's Clinic. If you're low energy, if you feel like you don't have it anymore, if you feel like, well, that's just middle age, Murph, it gets that way when you're 45 or 50, you slow down. If this is affecting the intimate portions of your life with your loved one, it is time to call the Tennessee Men's Clinic. They can help you. They will get with you. They will set you down. They'll go over you. They'll talk to you about where your issues might be. And their qualified urologist will get some blood work from you and figure out what's going on inside of that body of yours. Is it lack of sleep? Maybe if it's something else, they can assist you in that regard. Or maybe it's low T levels. And if that's the case, friends, they've got many different options to assist you. I was talking to a gentleman last night at our big debate watch party who told me that he was a proud customer of Tennessee Men's Clinic, and he absolutely loves what they're able to do for him and his family. Tennessee Men's Clinic. Go to TennesseeMen'sClinic.com or give them a call and schedule that appointment today. 2 locations. One's in Franklin, the other since 2014 in Midtown. Tennessee Men's Clinic is at 615-208-9090. 208-9090. Hey, Sammy, do me a favor if you don't mind. Call. A lot of people are asking if Steve has a Venmo account. Call him back because people are wanting to give to Steve so that he can distribute locally. So maybe try to do that for us. His name is, and ask him, by the way, if I'm allowed to use his last name because people want to connect with him on Facebook too. So we'll do that. 615-737-9986, 615-737-WWTN. If you'd like to be a part of the show, you can also hit us up on the membersnutrition.com super text line. My goodness gracious. It really kind of resets. Look, I understand that a lot of interest is with the debate and the happenings of the debate last night. I don't know how I can go back to talking about the debates after that incredible 30-minute conversation with Steve in Fairview, North Carolina, describing the tragedy that has befallen that part of the world. And We don't want to forget about it. My goodness gracious, we want to be one of the helpers. And I don't know what to do. It's one of the more frustrating aspects of this because you can't get over there. It's difficult to imagine the isolation that some of these folks are feeling because of the terrain itself, because of those hills and valleys, because of the hundreds of thousands and millions of years of shaping that terrain into the beauty that we so enjoy in Pigeon Forge and Gatlinburg and Asheville and Fairview and, Cashers and all of those places. That same beauty creates a little bit of isolation where these mountain roads, when they get cut off, and to hear Steve say that they're telling them that I-40 won't be back up and running until March, or portions of major interstates won't be back up until next year? Is it okay to give his last name, did he say? Okay. So Sammy called Steve back and asked if it was okay because a lot of you are asking about his Facebook page. You got his Venmo too? Send it to me. Text it to me if you don't mind, and I'll share it with the audience. So if you find him online on Facebook, it's Steve, A-N-T-L-E, Antle. He's a retired police officer, a hot air balloon crew chief, pilot, addiction survivor. And it says Fairview Strong. You'll see a photo there of some fire trucks and a beautiful rainbow. And you'll see a picture of, I believe that's got to be Steve there next to a military support personnel of some sort. So Steve, A-N-T-L-E, and it says Fairview Strong on top of the Facebook page. We'll do everything in our power to help him, as well as to, for those of you that are interested, and look, I didn't know Steve until he called us. So I'm telling you, I believe in him, and I believe in his heart, and I believe that if you are so inclined to give to Steve, Steve's going to, and you told him what we were asking for, right? That people want to donate to him so that he can pass it along, and I'm sure he will. It's at Steve and Antle, I guess? Antle, is that correct? Steve Antle, and Antle is spelled A-N-T-L-E. Steve Antle, Antle spelled A-N-T-L-E. And once again, I just met Steve, but you heard his story as I did, and it's an incredibly compelling one, and many of you are asking about that. Did Fairview itself get hit? Yes. TB writes in, and Steve described it to us. They're in a valley, and he described a mudslide that he says took out most of the town. The town is a suburb of Asheville, and I just looked it up. It's about 2,500 people, and many of those homes are gone. The death toll of Hurricane Helene, which is now officially the most deadly hurricane since Katrina, is up to 180. Just today, there was a family of 4 people that were found outside of Asheville dead. I am sad to tell you that more will be found because so many homes have not been cleared. So many people who felt very comfortable that North Carolina is not a place where this type of thing would happen. East Tennessee is just, Governor Bill Lee said it the other day, and he was exactly right. They said, well, looking back, do you think there was more that you could have done to prepare for this? And Governor Bill Lee said, how do you prepare for something that's never happened? In the arc of humanity, at least, or modern humanity, this type of thing has never happened. So explain to me how or why you would prepare for something that did not happen, had not happened, and was difficult to conceive of happening. We thought, I actually commented on this, both on and off air. Well, thank goodness this thing is moving quick, I said. Because God forbid it moves slowly and churn over the panhandle of Florida or churn over Statesboro, Georgia, or churn over Macon, Georgia, in those portions of the world where it would dump 30 and 40 and 50 inches of rain at a 24 or 48 hour or 36-hour clip. But sadly, what happened, because it was moving so quickly, the winds did not dissipate, and the rains were so torrential that you had down trees, you had down power lines, and then you had the flooding. And then when it got over North Carolina, when it got over eastern Tennessee, it just sat there for a while. Did the old dipsy doodle, as Brian Wilson called it. Boy, it did a dipsy doodle, all right. My goodness. Daniel's in the borough, wants to talk. Hey, Daniel, glad you called. How are you?
Doing well, guys. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you for calling in.
All right. Just three quick things. One, how about Dan Pappy?
I'm telling you, it's going to be hard to get me off Big Dandy.
Yeah, as soon as me and the missus heard it, we laughed about that one, too, because the first thing I thought of was Jim Dandy.
Well, I mean, yeah, there you go.
Number two, back in the day when it was the Three Amigos early in the morning, Brother Ken, I'm still rooting for No Shirt Fridays for you.
No Shirt Fridays, Brother Ken Weaver. What do you think?
I'm up for it.
I'm in.
We might even
And
widen
finally,
this camera lens.
Well, if
Finally, guys,
I go shirtless, so you'll need it.
We want to stop and say thank you to what you guys are doing and bringing attention to North Carolina, East Tennessee, all that area we used to drive through every 3 months whenever I was stationed out at North Carolina. So we're still trying to reach people out in Morganton, and we can't get anything.
I'm getting told, and listen, Daniel, thank you for the sentiment and thank you for the call, and I appreciate the humor, and I also appreciate the kind words for our friends and neighbors over in East Tennessee and Western Kentucky, and it extends beyond that. I've mentioned, and I try not to make this just about me, okay? But, I mean, my little hometown of Thompson, Georgia, Thomson, no P in Thompson, my little hometown in McDuffie County, it's a county of about 20 or so thousand, maybe 25,000. I don't know the exact figures anymore. But Thompson's a town of about 10,000 people, I think. And it's been decimated, just absolutely destroyed. Raysville, which is a town just outside of Thompson, Warrenton. These are places that I know well. Augusta, Georgia, a bigger community. Hephzibah, Georgia. Just no power and no suggestion that they're getting it anytime soon. 7467 says, stop. Did I say Kentucky? I'm sorry. So I apologize. If I said Kentucky, I apologize. I meant North Carolina. My bad. I meant North Carolina. I hope everybody knew what I meant. I said Kentucky like 3 times, and I'm sorry. North Carolina. Same. TB says no power for another week in Martinez. And we're now being told that FEMA and the Red Cross are confiscating donations? I'm going to research a little bit of that and get back to you in a moment. Take your telephone calls as well as we continue. It's 51 after the hour on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. All right, friends, Men of Valor, what a wonderful organization. So proud to be able to talk about this great group of people helping men in crisis. And that's truly what we're talking about, right? Because sadly, as these men go into prison because of crimes that they've committed, that crisis does not stop, that mental and physical crisis in some cases. And it manifests itself in recidivism, I'm sad to say. Oftentimes, when men get out of prison, they commit again. As a matter of fact, of the 90% of men who are currently in prison will get out, right? You know, because most have committed crimes that do not require life sentences. And about 50% of those men will return within 3 years unless someone intervenes, unless someone gives them hope, unless someone disciples to them. And those someones, that is Men of Valor. That is their purpose. They attempt to, and they do a great job of showing men the way to live productive lives in society, lives that their families are proud of. Men of Valor needs volunteers. Obviously, they need donations. They're a charitable organization. They do such great work in our prison system in the state of Tennessee. But they need you in the prisons, on their campus, aftercare reentry service, job partners, Bible study teachers, mentors as well. Will you join in helping set the captives free and making our community a safer place to live? Go to movministry.com. That's movministry.com for Men of Valor.
Tennessee hurricane response update. Survivors facing a different kind of danger coming up at 2 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Thank you, Ken Weaver. Approaching that 2 o'clock hour right now on Super Talk 99.7. So an incredibly compelling conversation with Steve from Fairview, North Carolina, reminding us where our focus should be, and we'll maintain a little bit of focus on that in the final hour of the show. We've also got Cameron Smith coming in during his weekly visit on these Wednesdays. We'll ask him what he thought about the debate last evening. I've already gotten a little bit of an assessment, and it's pretty positive if I may give an analysis and a synopsis of it. I'll let Cameron speak for himself coming up in just moments. And we'll get to some of your telephone calls and some of your super text regarding what is going on in Western North Carolina. And I'm sorry I was calling it Kentucky. I can't say that enough. I said it like 3 times, and I'm sorry. I don't know why I did it, but I did it. It's obviously North Carolina, and I know it's North Carolina, and I know it's East Tennessee, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And I do not believe that climate change has anything to do with this. For 2132, who asked me that on the membersnutrition.com super text line. I think hurricanes have been happening for a long time, despite the fact that CBS, in reference to Hurricane Helene, decided to make it a question about climate change, which it ought not be. It ought to be a question about whether the Biden-Harris administration has absolutely failed the people of North Carolina, failed the people of North Georgia, failed the people of East Tennessee, which they've done on the federal level. We'll talk about that next on Super Talk 99.7 WT. And here comes the news.
Two o'clock on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Got the full forecast in 5 minutes. And right now, in Hurricane Helene ravaged East Tennessee, TEMA Director Patrick Sheehan told today's briefing survivors face another danger.
If folks are returning their flood damaged home, we really just want to caution them to be very careful as they remove debris. Floodwaters oftentimes carry a toxic sludge of things, and so make sure you're wearing proper gear as well.
Yeah, they have set up a 1-800 number for survivors to call. It is the Crisis Cleanup Hotline at 844-965-1386. This is so TEMA says it knows where the survivor is and can get the right level assistance to them if they do indeed make it back to their property and want to recover some items. President Biden is in the Carolinas today to survey Helene damage. He's also got the Middle East on his mind, saying he and other world leaders are preparing a response to Iran's attack on Israel.
President Biden spoke with G7 world leaders today to discuss what the White House called Iran's unacceptable attack against Israel and to coordinate on a response, which will include new sanctions. The president was asked before he left for the Carolinas if he supported an Israeli strike on Iran's nuclear sites.
The answer is no. I think there's things we'll be discussing with the Israelis what they're going to do, but all 7 of us agree that they have a right to respond.
President Biden also commented on the port strike along the eastern seaboard and Gulf Coast, urging the conglomerate representing the shipping companies to come to the table soon.
Remember, we negotiated a similar strike on the West Coast before, and they worked it out. It's time. They won't even talk, so let's get that done.
Now, the strike could affect the supply chain in a few weeks. Many large retailers have been redirecting their supply chain logistics to West Coast ports, which are not affected. Closing arguments expected today in Memphis in the federal trial of 3 black police officers accused with beating Tyree Nichols to death last year. Attorneys for the 3 officers rested on Monday. A judge spent yesterday poring over the jury instructions. Attorneys also didn't call the 3 former officers to testify before resting their case, which ABC News legal contributor Brian Buckmeyer says is not a fair practice.
The judge will instruct the jury, as they do with all criminal juries, that you cannot hold the fact that someone does not testify against them. That's their Fifth Amendment right. We all have that. However, as a defense attorney, to promise information to the jury and then never give it up, that's a cardinal sin in my mind.
That is the latest news. Weather is next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN, entering hour number 3 of the Matt Murphy Radio Show. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being around. Whatever time you're able to give us, we're certainly appreciative. Are you taking my photograph? How dare you, sir? I had a lot of that going on last night. We missed you last evening, Cameron.
I had football practice, man.
Well, we'll get into it. Hold on. Let me do the pleasantries. 7 minutes after the hour, Sammy's controlling the experience. Ken Weaver's back in the newsroom. My name is Matt, and we're proud to have you with us today. Until 3 o'clock, we hand off to the drive at that time. Normally on these Wednesdays at 2 o'clock, we welcome in Cameron Smith, and today is a normal day. Hello, Cameron.
Hello, Matt.
How's it going? You seem very low-key.
It's been a real emotional letdown this week after Saturday's game. It was a lot.
What are you talking about?
The highs and the lows.
Have we spoken since then?
No. Yeah, we have. I gave you the koozie. I'm sure you.
Oh yeah,
disposed of it.
I did. Did you just you found that in a parking lot somewhere, right?
No, I found it as we left the stadium. A Georgia van left a
stupid Georgia. Yeah. Well, I'm glad the shine is still going on that victory. Congratulations.
Yeah, I stole it from Carson Beck.
Well, I'm surprised you didn't give me a football then, because apparently he was handing those out to Bama people.
Because I'm a football dork, I was reading some of the Georgia message boards, and they are not amused.
What about Carson?
Yeah, you don't have Ladd, you don't have Brock Bowers, then he's not the same dude.
Well, I mean, so, yeah, throwing it to the other teams. We're not here to talk about football, but throwing it to the other team is one thing. But you've also got to have receivers. Look, now in the second half, they did a lot better.
No question.
But I can point to you to woulda, coulda, shoulda. But Arian Smith catches that dime that he dropped into his lap on the Georgia's opening drive. And who knows how things are different.
Momentum change.
But he didn't, and you go 3 and out, and then it's 14-0 before you know it, and then what?
Well, and it's a beautiful day outside, and
it is gorgeous.
And here it's a place. Outside beautiful. Here place.
I mean, we could go. We could do a remote field trip if you wanted to.
We should do a remote from the parking lot.
And yeah, I've done it before.
I like that idea.
I do too. Not here to talk football, but once again, for those who missed our exchange on Monday, congratulations again.
Thank you. Good game.
Congratulations again, and hope to see you in the future.
Hey,
maybe. I mean, it's hard to beat the same team twice in 1 year.
About it. Need you to beat Texas.
Well, we'll do our best.
Please.
A couple of weeks from now, we've got a dispatch of
also Tennessee. Just saying.
Well, y'all play Tennessee too, right?
We do.
In their place. I think y'all play them in their place. At least we got them at home. Tennessee's dangerous, man.
Volunteers look legit.
They got a defense. Somebody told old Heupel, hey, great offense and all, might want to get a defense. He went, what? We can do both?
Yeah.
Yes, you can do both.
And he did.
And he did. So who knows what will happen over the course of the year. So we were talking last hour about the situation going on in East Tennessee and in Western North Carolina.
Crazy bad.
My goodness gracious. It is crazy bad. And it's reminding me how easy it is when you're not the person hit by the storm or necessarily you're not impacted in the way that they are, to just kind of go about your day, go about your business, and watch the news cycle just move on. And I'm not suggesting it has, because I'm looking up at my monitor right now, and they're covering the hundreds of thousands of people that are currently still without power, the roadways that are down, the power lines that are down. But it's easy in this cycle, though.
And what I've looked for, okay, where can we volunteer? Where can we go? What can we do? And there's a lot of donations and stuff, food, water, diapers, that kind of stuff. But one of the things I didn't realize about all this is some of the folks I've asked said, well, you can't really go. The roads aren't there.
Right.
You can get to the end of the road, park, and then hike. But
you're still 40 miles away or whatever.
Right. It is not a small endeavor even to volunteer, because when the F5 tornadoes hit Hackleburg in that area, I went. It was torn up. Worst thing I've ever seen.
Pratt City, Tuscaloosa, all
I
of it.
went and I picked up stuff, right? I helped out. I could still drive there and do that. In this situation, like you said, some of those people are just so isolated. And when those roads are gone, you're talking literally climbing a mountain to get to them.
Yeah. Yeah, no exaggeration. You have to climb a mountain to get to the people that need your help.
Right.
Which is a difficult endeavor. And then you add the inefficiency and the measures taken by the federal government. And look, I'm not one to tell you that we should lean on FEMA necessarily, the federal government. I'm kind of the guy that wants to get away from that and back to more local control and community control. But sadly, what FEMA does is they come in and they kind of shut a lot of that stuff down, and then they become inefficient in what they do.
Yep.
And it's adding to the frustration
They don't want
of the
old
people.
boy in there with a chainsaw. And
Right, because what if you cut your leg and then you're going to sue somebody? Well,
who cares? Go,
that'd be
go
right.
help.
Go.
Yeah, well, this is where I love DeSantis telling the federal government, we got this in Florida. You guys go help in North Carolina.
Right.
I'm like, all right, man, that's leadership.
Well, and it's one of those, and I was mentioning it right before you came on, careful what you wish for because you might get it. Because when the hurricane hit the Big Bend, which I never called it the Big Bend until like 2 years ago, but now it's the Big Bend. It's the Panhandle. That was the Panhandle, right? That's the curve of the Panhandle.
Yeah, where the Panhandle and the long part meet.
I call it the dongle.
The dongle.
It's the Panhandle of Florida and the dongle of Florida. Where that meets, that's the Big Bend.
Yeah.
And the storm comes in and it takes up speed, and I'm like, oh, good. It won't just sit there and dump water in, northern Florida or southern Georgia and flood those people. That's great. But it went to North Carolina and did the same thing. It went to North Georgia and did the same thing. And sadly, it just sat there and dumped like 45 inches of rain on those places, and they just couldn't handle it.
Yeah, I mean, even here that watching the weather pattern come through and circle around and do it again. I mean, that was wild.
So we've got a number of calls regarding the issue of Hurricane Helene on the line, and we'll get to you in just a moment, especially line 2. I'm interested in line 2. But what did you think of you catch some of the debate last night? I know you got football to deal with.
We did. We got Hendersonville this Saturday, and so we got to practice.
And once again, you got a bunch of 10-year-olds over there?
The Triple B.
That's not me.
Stars.
That's not me saying this isn't a big deal.
Don't tell me about the
Down
Bulldogs and Crimson
Nolensville.
Tide. You got the Stars, man. I mean,
Nolensville Stars versus. I mean, when you see Nolensville and Hendersonville on the,
I think it's the
playing
Hendersonville
field,
Titans, if I recall correctly.
you better throw those record books out the window because the game is on, baby.
Yeah, online Donkey Kong. But as far as the debate goes, J.D. Vance put on a master class on how to debate. He was excellent. And frankly, he was the best of anybody we've seen on a debate stage this cycle. It's not close.
I agree.
And what he did is he humanized himself after being villainized in the media. Let's be honest about what's happened to him. This is muckraking. They've found a bunch of stuff about him and things he said in the past and that sort of stuff, which they do to all the politicians. But they've really been like, this guy, he's terrible. He's a drag on the Trump ticket. He's all the, I don't know. The American people saw a guy out there who was excellent. And he made his points. He was empathetic. He found... Actually, as a conservative, I was a little concerned that he might find too much common ground with Walz on the policy issues. I'm like, no, we don't have to find common ground here.
Yeah, you don't have to say that we agree. Stop saying I agree with Tim.
Well,
don't say that.
Like on the paid family leave, obviously, you know where I feel tariffs are silly policies, and it was interesting how much I liked J.D. Vance on that stage, and I think a lot of American people saw that and were like, oh.
So
okay.
I'm curious if tariffs aren't the answer, what is in our trade wars? Because you're putting American manufacturing out of business when you allow slave labor to come into the country without.
Sure, and I can understand the argument. Well, it's the labor. The Chinese don't take care of their folks in the way we do, and our unions. You know, we've seen how the unions do with labor and stuff. They're doing it right now. Like, okay, we have higher labor costs. That's absolutely true. I look over there and say, that may not be fair, but who you put it on is the American people. Like, that's the deal with tariffs is the price of the tariffs the consumer bears. And at a time of high inflation.
Wait, but what's worse, putting a little more burden on the American consumer or watching all of our manufacturing in America dry up because the Chinese are able to use slave labor to produce the same product at a much lower price?
So manufacturing in the United States isn't drying up. In fact, Deloitte has a report out where we're the top one in the world again.
You know, part of the reason why it's not drying up?
It's not the tariffs.
What? But how is it? How do you say that? How can you possibly? The tariffs have been in place since 2017.
I can tell you how I can say that because the manufacturing America does is on the high level goods that they can't make anywhere else in the world. If you want socks, we don't make socks as cheap as they can make them in Vietnam.
Don't you want to make socks?
No.
You don't want Americans to make socks.
I want the inputs to the things that we create to be the highest.
We'll buy slave socks. We'll buy slave labor socks and encourage slave labor to come into the country.
No,
That's good.
I believe
That's cool.
the American consumer can make the choice. If they want to pay, because we sell them, right? You can have American-made $10 socks.
Right.
Or you can have the Chinese version $3 socks.
I have been preaching this argument for a long, long time, my friend.
Sure.
That we as consumers must turn our goods over, and if it says made in China, you need to put it back and go get something else.
Totally
I
fine.
understand that.
And don't shop at Walmart. And don't shop at Costco. And my point is, if free markets work, we let the consumer make the choice, not the government.
The free market doesn't work if the markets that you're competing against aren't free markets. They're slave markets.
The free market works in the United States because we've said we would rather have these inputs at these prices.
You have to repair the balance. You have to repair the balance against those slave labor markets that are coming into. I mean, look, I understand it's not a libertarian position. I get it. My position is not libertarian because libertarians believe just in let everybody come in and sell their goods at whatever price they want to sell their goods for.
Yes.
And that is not a good place to be if you want to produce things in the United States.
It's a bad policy for the average American who's just going to have to pay more. You're saying,
let's go.
You got to put it up because the government says you got to pay more, but don't worry, we're going to make socks here.
If you want an almost exclusively service-oriented economy in the United States of America, do what you're doing.
Service-oriented.
And let China destroy the goods.
Like the GPUs we're making here, like the battery tech, kind of service-oriented?
No, I'm just telling you, if you open it up the way that you want to open it up.
High-paying manufacturing versus low-paying manufacturing?
We saw what happened when NAFTA came on board, right? You understand that those manufacturing facilities left the zone and ran away. Look,
because they can make the cheap stuff cheaply in other places.
There's a way to repair this, and it's called a national sales tax.
Okay.
Fair tax.
Like just, hey, we've got a national sales tax we pay on everything.
Right. On goods. And I don't necessarily disagree with the Trump idea about corporate taxes. Or you reduce the rate of American-made goods to 15% and everything else 21%.
Yeah, I mean, as far as
is that better than tariffs for you?
I like it better through the tax code. The challenge with taxes is I've long argued we do too much engineering through the tax code. Just have flat, simple, clear. Don't make it difficult, and then let competition figure out what goes where. If you're saying I don't like the way the game's playing out, so I need to rig the game in a certain way because over in China, they don't have our same laws. Okay. I mean, that's a policy preference. I just don't subscribe to it.
And China also happens to steal our technologies and then take the slave labor and produce our technologies at a lower rate and then come back and sell it to us.
Yeah, but when even in Project 2025, the guys over at Heritage who supported
Trump's
2025, even those guys who initially supported tariffs, they literally in Project 2025, they're like, we were wrong. Like the cost to the American family is much higher than we anticipated, and the juice we get for the squeeze isn't worth it. And so, okay, I mean, it's a policy position.
I mean, I think our friend Gary Palmer would probably agree with me that the long game will see that the Chinese take over the United States economy through their low rate of or their low cost of goods and service or goods primarily.
Yeah, I mean, we won't.
The long game is we'll be taking over economically.
The sock play will be significant.
It's more than just socks, man, and you know it. You know that it's more than just socks, and they are playing a long economic game in China to take us over.
They create dependency.
Right.
They absolutely do. And my question is
that we have to do the necessary painful things to break ourselves out of the addiction cycle that we're in. We're addicts to low-cost products in China.
And the difference between you and I is you say, well, you're saying it's the government's role to make us not addicts versus us saying we just choose not to be. And I like the choice.
I'm saying the government can act as a partner to intervene to our addiction to try to help break us from the cycle, just as a family member would try to break you from your drug addiction.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great way to...
Or you can say, just pay, buddy.
Liberal economic interventionism is a thing. It's a thing.
Did you just call me a liberal?
You're the one saying it, not me.
I got him. When he starts slinging the liberal word around.
It's what Democrats have done for generations.
Well, I get it. All right, it's 21 after the hour. We'll get to Matt. We'll get to Neil. We'll get to more on the debate, and we'll continue talking about Hurricane Helene as we continue to break it down with Cameron Smith, our good friend from the Tennessee. And then you hear Cameron weekly. You hear Cameron all the time. He's filling in for me on Friday because I can't seem to work on Fridays for some reason. 615-737-9986. Back in a moment. Hey, friends, it's Matt Murphy. If you've got back pain, neck pain, knee pain, hip, and you know what? I need to call the Dr. Gill Center and ask them if they can assist me with this pain in my neck named Cameron. Maybe they can. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe that's a task too difficult for even the Dr. Gill Center. One way or the other, in all seriousness, folks, the Dr. Gill Center, they're so good at what they do. They believe in doing everything in their power to assist you to get to a pain-free life without the need for pills, without the need for needles to block pain, and certainly without the consideration for surgery. And they do it every single day. Dr. Wendy, Dr. Gill, Dr. Dominic, Dr. V, all of these guys are able to help you with your pain. They will reduce pain, reduce swelling, accelerate healing, pinpointing inflammation in the body, and pinpointing those places where compressions exist in your spinal area. The Dr. Gill Center wants to see you for less than $50. Your initial consultation, they'll take x-rays, they'll look over you, they'll go over you, and your first appointment is less than $50 with treatment available as well. 615-882-4838, 882-4838, the Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief in Franklin.
Tennessee hurricane response. The death toll has climbed. This story and more at 2:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Thank you, Ken Weaver. Looking forward to that newscast coming up in mere moments on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Cameron Smith with us this hour. Matt has been holding in Hendersonville, wants to talk about Hurricane Helene and global warming as an extension. Hello, Matt. Hey, Matt. How are you?
Hey, it's Bob. I'm sorry. She took my name wrong. Listen, I don't want to belittle anything or take anything away, but, we keep talking about climate change, and I'm not really a buyer into this climate change deal. Devastation is one thing, and, losing lives in a hurricane, it's bad. It's terrible, and then the houses and everything. But, I seem to think back in the 1900s, we had a hurricane in Galveston that killed almost 8,000 people. And I think a lot of the devastation that we see now because of these storms is we're so much more concentrated in areas. So when a storm comes through, it doesn't have to be wide to kill hundreds or thousands of people. We've not had one, I think, that's killed thousands in a long, long time. So this thing about, global warming, I just can't buy into that one.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't think that Hurricane Helene was anything more significant than we've seen in the past. I mean, Hurricane Helene, Hurricane Katrina, Hurricane Camille back in the day. Mm-hmm. I mean, there have been plenty of examples. The one in Galveston that you're referencing, I mean, two things. One, nobody knew it was coming. People knew a storm was coming, but they didn't know that was coming. Number two, housing construction was just woefully inadequate to withstand those types of winds and whatnot. So, I mean, we've made a lot of advances. The one thing the climate never stops doing is changing.
Right.
Interestingly enough.
Outside it has, in fact, changed.
Yeah. I mean,
it's cool. It's great.
That's nice.
Well, I mean, my point is, okay, cool. Climate is changing. What steps would you like us to take to avoid the hurricane?
No more fossil fuels.
You know what?
Right. That's what a liberal would tell you, right?
Now what happens, let's just say hypothetically we do that. And then we have another hurricane that does the same thing. And like you said, we have electric cars.
Right, we don't have gasoline-powered
debit cars. Nothing works.
Chainsaws.
Like, my question is, okay, you're saying we have to do the thing, but then you also are telling me nothing we do will change what we have now. So if we do this stuff, maybe in the future it won't be bad, but there's no possible way that I can demonstrate right now that what you say is giving me more safety.
And I don't know of anyone that doesn't agree that if the free market wants to invest in electric vehicles, if the free market wants to go in a route that goes away from, that's fine. That's all well and good. But I'm going to gravitate to the things that work for me and work for me always. And what the liberal wants to do is to demand that the government take those things away from me right now on the promise that 150 years from now it will solve some crisis that I don't really see as a crisis right now.
Yeah, kind of like Vietnamese socks.
I think, by the way, Sammy, I think I won that point. I think I won it only because he keeps bringing it back up. Have you noticed this?
Well, I think you're right about the whole, you're coming up with these policies that will allegedly change the thing 500 years from now, but we can't prove anything today. My point is the free market's basically going to say, and I believe in our lifetimes, that it's going to be largely electric powered by nuclear.
Yep.
That's where we're going. We don't have to like it, but that's where it goes.
I thought Vance's answer on this question gets us back to the debate from last night. I thought his answer was brilliant because you're not dismissive of those who have bought into this climate change, quote, crisis. You don't dismiss them, but you say, okay, even if I grant you that you're right, what's the best way to deal with it right now? The best way is to invest in clean energy in America instead of allowing the countries that still just belch up out of the coal plants, like China, for example. It's better to do it here than over there because we're going to do it cleaner and better.
Yes.
So,
well, I mean, and this is where a lot of Democrats really struggle with nuclear. And then so if I'm Vance, if I'm Trump, I'm dumping it on their heads and say, you know what? Cool. I got a source that's zero emissions that we can use that will radically improve the environment, but we just got to get the regulatory state to play ball so we can innovate. How about it?
If we were kings for the day, man, oh man, it would be a dangerous day.
Yeah, it would.
But if we were kings for a day, we would agree. The first thing we would agree is that we're not going to do anything about the Vietnamese socks. We're just going to set that aside for a minute. We would start building smaller nuclear power facilities across the United States of America that have been proven over and over again in the area. I mean, if there's one thing the French do right, it's power.
and croissants.
Okay, if there's two things that the fridge do right, it's power and croissants.
Well, but I mean, the first thing I would do.
Baguettes. Those are good
also
too.
good.
Ooh, cheese.
Mm.
All right.
Brie.
All right.
I like brie.
Oh, my goodness.
Very French. But I like the
champagne.
I would declassify some of our military nuclear tech because it's basically highly enriched fuel and a small form factor, and you can put it anywhere. That's what runs aircraft carriers and submarines.
Yeah.
You know, you guard it, you protect it, but you could do this all over the country, and you could do it today. And
it's clean.
And it's, okay, cool. That's our new energy. Let's go.
And we still, and for some reason, oddly, the left has demanded that we maintain this mentality. We have this late 1970s, early 1980s, 1986 Chernobyl mentality that, you put a nuclear power plant in Tennessee and it's going to blow up. By the way, we have a nuclear power plant in Tennessee and it doesn't blow up.
It's fear-based energy policy.
Right.
And it's like, well, what if the terrorists did a thing? We're letting terrorists decide what's good for American energy? That's not a very good idea. And we've just been stupid about this for a long time. And look, I'm sorry for the coal folks. Coal's going away. It is, as an energy source. Natural gas is a bridge fuel. We're going to nuclear. That's what's going to happen. And I'm okay with that. I think that's where the market says go.
I'm fine with that. Neil is next. Oh, wait, no, you're not Neil. Ken Weaver's next. My bad. Sammy, you gotta scream at me. Sammy, by the way, Bell's here. He's just not present and accounted for in the control area because Sammy is in the midst of training. She's doing a great job, except she doesn't have her host in line. You need to get your host in line. Ken Weaver, get her in line over there. It's Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Got the full forecast coming up in 5 minutes. Tennessee hurricane response. The death toll has climbed to at least 8 across some of the easternmost counties impacted. The effort to get to survivors, especially those who are cut off, continues to be challenging. TEMA Director Patrick Sheehan told today's briefing they're partnering with Bristol Motor Speedway for what will be called the Northeast Tennessee Disaster Relief Center.
It is the place we're going to be directing donations. So voluntary organizations throughout and communities and churches throughout Tennessee and across America are reaching out, wanting to send things. Bristol Motor Speedways has graciously allowed us to use their properties, so we'll be pushing all donations there and then using that as a logistic staging area to make sure that we're meeting the needs in each of these communities as they can receive aid.
President Biden's in the Carolinas to survey damage. He announced he's deploying 1,000 active duty soldiers to reinforce the North Carolina National Guard. He's also got the Middle East to deal with and told reporters he and other world leaders of the G7 do not want Israel to take out Iran's nuclear interests.
The answer is no. I think there's things we'll be discussing with the Israelis what they're going to do, but all 7 of us agree that they have a right to respond.
Now, Israel saying it will retaliate for Iran's ballistic missile barrage yesterday. And in Louisiana, Governor Jeff Landry has thrown his support behind the revival of Louisiana State University's live tiger mascot at home football games.
Calling it an unbelievable opportunity, Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry confirming his backing for LSU to bring back its iconic Bengal tiger mascot, a tradition that's been dormant for nearly a decade. The proposal facing fierce opposition from People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. PETA urging the governor to reconsider, arguing that bringing a wild animal into a chaotic stadium environment is both cruel and dangerous. Landry responding, saying everyone anxious about this needs to, quote, calm down.
As Dave Packer reporting and the latest news. Weather is next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN. So do you think Tim Walz last night? By the way, my name's Matt Murphy. There's Cameron Smith. We got another segment to go. We'll hand off to Brian Wilson in the drive in just a moment or two. Do you think that Tim Walz looks more like that dude from the Hale-Bopp Comet, the mass suicide guy, the wide-eyed guy, or Uncle Fester from the Addams Family?
He kind of looks like the old guy from Up, the animated film.
Oh, put some big glasses on.
I mean,
that would be good.
he just has this sort of default frown. But when we started the debate last night, he looked like legit lost and sort of wide-eyed, and like he was darting every way. It was very bizarre. I don't think there's going to be a bump for either campaign. There's a huge bump for J.D. Vance in terms of how people perceive him. I think he helped himself out tremendously.
I don't know. CNN last night, was it? No, I'm sorry, CBS, the debate moderators, they had a panel, and I don't know if I believe these. Oh, I'm undecided. I don't know how much I believe that. But it was 6 people. It was 2 Trump, 2 Harris, and 2 undecided.
Mm-hmm.
And after the debate, they polled them again, and they said, okay, where are you now? Trumps were still Trump, Harris was still Harris, and the undecideds were Trump.
Yeah.
I mean, so anecdotally, and I know that it's just one little
he did a good job.
I don't think Walz, obviously, I don't think Walz moved anybody to Harris's camp. I think maybe, and maybe this is just me being Pollyanna, maybe Vance convinced some people that have concerns about Trump's personality that you can present the policies in a way that are more appealing.
Yeah. It's several folks I've talked to have said, why is J.D. Vance not at the top of the ticket? Well, 1, he didn't run. 2, Trump, I will continue to say, for any of the criticism I have of Trump, he remains quite authentic. He is very
the best thing he's got going for him.
And it's not slick. Like, Vance did great. He had a great night, great as far as his likability, but he still feels like a politician, right? Like, it still feels like I have polished these remarks, and this is how I do. Trump, in no way, feels like anything that a politician
to
is.
His benefit and detriment simultaneously.
Yeah, and I think this is just the era of Trump. You're going to feel one way about it or the other, but it's gonna be either an end because he serves a term or he loses the election.
Water pistol to your head right now. Who wins the election?
I want to say that people are going to vote economics and they're going to vote it swings to Trump. But what the media has done to rebuild Harris and make her likable and stuff is nothing short of phenomenal. And I think some people don't think about, actually, my economics were better under Trump. They think, well, he's annoying and she seems so nice.
I just could not get over if you live in reality, you recognize that the ways that they ding Trump are dishonest ways. In other words, Vance says the economy was going great. They go, no, it wasn't 2020.
Right.
Well, I mean that, and they literally have started saying that Trump's response to COVID was disaster. Well, tell me what country responded to COVID in any way that wasn't a disaster in the initial months following COVID.
If Trump loses, Carville's maxim of "it's the economy, stupid" is not true. I think really it's economics versus personality. And what I mean by that is I don't really care about Harris's personality. I don't think anybody's going to vote for that. It's just, are your economics more important to you, or is I don't like Trump's personality? Because that's really what most of the attacks on Trump are. It's, I don't like your personality. I don't like your character. I don't like the way you talk to people and you demean them. It's not about his policies.
The desire to bend the knee to unions on the part of Biden/Harris right now,
bad idea.
I think it's going to lend itself directly to what you're saying in the next 30 days. If they allow this shore workers, this port worker strike to go on, and apparently Joe Biden is all in with the unions.
I was on the radio down in Mobile this morning, and they said because they're familiar with the port, that port is shut down, the Port of Mobile.
Yep.
Shut down right now, and there have already been runs on toilet paper. And so I'm telling you, you go into an election with runs on toilet paper and stuff like that
necessities,
because you sided with the unions, this is a Trump slam dunk.
No doubt. All right, let's, I'll tell you what, let's get to Neil. I think we've got him on the line. He wants to talk about the shoreman strike. Neil, you there?
Yes.
Thank you for holding, Neil. What's on your mind?
I wanted to ask if you could, I may have some incorrect information, but whenever the railroad strike happened, was that in 2022 near the midterm elections when Biden stepped in and said, you're not allowed to strike, you have to go to mediation, and now he's not saying that? Does that have to do with the union people voted 59 or 60-something% in favor of Trump, but then the union leadership decided to go against their voters and endorse Harris? I'll let you speak to that.
Yeah, so if I'm not mistaken, it was 2022. It was right before
It was legislation, though.
But it was Congress pushed, they forced them into negotiations, right?
Yeah, that was a bill that Biden signed. It wasn't he didn't use executive authority to kick it down the road. If this starts to get bad, we'll know it's bad by the end of this week, right? Because every day that these ports are shut down, the supply chain suffers about a week.
I just looked it up, though. In November, after some unions rejected the initial agreement negotiated in September, Biden went to Congress to ask that they pass the agreement into law. November 30th, the House of Representatives passed the existing tentative agreement along with an amended version. Now, understand, I think this was before, were Republicans in control of the House? I don't think they were.
I can't remember.
I can't remember either. But
it was the end of 22.
Yeah, so it was the last portion of November in 2022, requiring railroad workers. It was an amended version that would give them 7 days paid sick leave. I won't get into the weeds there. On December 1st, the Senate passed the tentative agreement with only 1 day of sick leave. President Joe Biden signed the legislation into law December 2nd. The Biden administration's intervention in the dispute was condemned by over 500 labor historians in an open letter to Joe Biden and the Secretary of Labor, Marty Walsh. You will not see that type of intervention necessarily now. Do you buy into the theory, it's a little bit of a conspiracy theory, that Joe Biden either has no ability to make these decisions because the people around him that were making the decisions are now too busy campaigning and structuring Harris's run for the presidency, or he feels abandoned by the Democrats? I mean, they left him and just see ya. I mean, he didn't get mentioned last night in the debate. Didn't get mentioned on purpose by Vance, which I think was brilliant. Some are saying that Joe Biden has his lip pooched out about all this, and he's like sucking his thumb in the White House right now because he feels like his party's left him behind and won't give him the credit that he feels like he deserves.
That imposes way too much thought in Joe Biden right now. I seriously believe that he is waned so much in his capacity, and it's open. It's not a secret. You can see it when people ask him questions and he responds in completely weird ways. Like, his capacity is so diminished. Do I think that he can get sort of thumbs up, thumbs down on, hey, these longshoremen are striking. Do we want to use, Taft-Hartley and say kick the can down the road for 90 days or not? He can do that. Politically, this is a train wreck because the rail strike implicated about 30% of the goods in the U.S. This is the ports of entry. So whether it's rails or trucks, they can't do anything if that stuff doesn't make it in.
Yeah, right. It was well said. That at least with the rail strike, you could say, okay, truckers, get over there and get what you can where you need to go.
They shut the gates and you can't get in. Truckers line up, no containers to ship.
And it will spiral quickly. $5 billion a day.
And the ships will be parked out in the Gulf of Mexico saying, we want to come in, and they won't have anywhere to go.
Flip is in Hendersonville. Thank you, Flip, for your call. How are you?
I am just dancing on the sunshine today, and how about you?
I'm doing great, my friend. Thank you for calling.
I told the call screener that you and I used to be life partners, but ever since I found Jesus, I'm not that way anymore, and she put me through.
Oh.
Well, she's a great American.
Oh, this is my Flip. Oh. How have you been?
Hey, I just want to say something about the debate. What a wonderful thing it was. But, here are my thoughts. What would be just a gift of God if they won, and about 2.5 years into Trump's presidency, he just said, fellas, I believe I've had all I want. I'm going to the House. JD, take it over. And I believe he would do such a good job. he could finish out that term and win 2 more terms. And what a gift from Almighty God that would be to this country. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I don't disagree that Trump's at an age that he might find it necessary to leave office. I don't think he would necessarily do that voluntarily, Flip. I don't think it's in his personality. It's just not in his character. He wants to be the man. So if he's able, he'll finish out those terms. But here's the thing. If he's president and he's only got 1 more in him, and it's natural that J.D. Vance would be the heir apparent to the candidacy if
they're successful, J.D. Vance will be the next nominee for president of the United States from the Republicans.
Let's check in with Brian Wilson next on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Doug and Karen wanted to talk about toilet paper and the toilet paper run that is actually apparently happening here too.
Oh,
by
great.
The way, in our community. Have you got a lot? You got a square to spare?
I have 4 boys in my house. We stockpile.
Do you know? I think we now have thanks to members of my household, not named me. I think we have 2 large. I think we got them from BJ's yesterday.
And we can just sell them $10 a roll.
Come on. Well, we'll do it when the time comes. 51 after the hour on Super Talk. Super Talk 99.7 WTN, desperately short on time. My apologies to Mr. Brian Wilson, but we have just enough time for Brian to preview what's going on the drive this afternoon. Hello, Brian. Hello, Brian. Hello, Brian. I don't hear Brian. Oh, hey, hello. Check 1, 2. No. I loved it. Absolutely loved it. Oh, boy. You know, I said earlier, that, Brian, that, you know, if you leave the stage after 90 minutes of debating and you're not the guy that had to admit that he's a liar, I think you're coming out to the good. And that was J.D. Vance last night, right? Brian Wilson coming up with the drive on this Wednesday edition. Be sure to stay tuned for that until 7 o'clock tonight. And we're back tomorrow at high noon. Ken Weaver's got the news right now on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Have a wonderful afternoon. Enjoy what feels like fall weather, friends. And we'll see you tomorrow. Until then, hug your loved ones. So long, everybody.
Three o'clock on the dot this Wednesday afternoon. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Got the full forecast in 5 minutes. Big police presence right now in Clarksville. A suspect barricaded inside a hotel room. This is on Wilma Rudolph Boulevard. Authorities trying to negotiate a peaceful resolution. A perimeter has been established around the County Inn and Suites in the 3000 block of Wilma Rudolph Boulevard. This all started around 1:16 this afternoon when police say they got a call regarding an unwanted guest in one of the rooms. Well, that person then barricaded themselves inside the room, and crisis negotiators went to work trying to speak with him. The rooms next door have been evacuated. Tennessee hurricane response update. The death toll has climbed to at least 8 across several easternmost counties. The effort to find those missing and get survivor supplies like water continues to evolve. TEMA Director Patrick Sheehan told today's briefing utility crews have cut the number of power outages to 1,400 as of this morning, but communicating is still challenging.
There are still lots of problems with cell phone communications in Verizon, especially in Carter County, and we're working with Verizon and AT&T to provide solutions. And as the governor talked about, Elon Musk and Starlink are providing things in addition to what we've already purchased to augment that communications capability.
Almost 400 National Guardsmen are on the ground operating airlifts with Black Hawk helicopters to deliver necessary supplies like water to residents who are still cut off. President Biden in the Carolinas today to survey damage there and announced the deployment of 1,000 active duty soldiers to back up the North Carolina National Guard. He's also dealing with the port strike, which threatens to cut supplies and raise consumer prices heading into the holidays.
President Biden said the port workers and the shipping companies should sit at the table and get this strike resolved.
Remember, we negotiated a similar strike on the West Coast before, and they worked it out. It's time. They won't even talk, so let's get that done.
The president said the last thing the country needs right now is another, quote, man-made disaster, and said the White House is already hearing about supply chain issues because of the East Coast and Gulf Coast port strike.
As for the Middle East, Biden says he opposes Israel taking out Iran's nuclear interests in retaliation for yesterday's ballistic missile attack on Israel. And Biden says he's working on a joint statement to that matter with the other G7 leaders. And the nation's largest private employer is expanding health insurance coverage to include some of the nation's best doctors in cancer treatment.
If they or a member of their family is diagnosed with cancer, Walmart employees will now be able to get a second opinion from doctors at the Mayo Clinic and then be able to travel to the clinic for treatment if needed. Walmart had already been offering this for certain types of cancer. This move will expand the program. It's the latest example of an employer focusing on connecting people with good care as healthcare costs soar.
That's Sherry Preston reporting. And the latest news, traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.